Hello friends, myself Sresh. In this video, we will see the basic of networking devices. So as we all know, the main function of a network, the main function of a network as you can see here, is to establish communication between the hardware devices. So we have multiple hardware devices. We have seen some even in our homes, right? We have routers, we have modems, we have switches in organizations, we have our endpoint devices. So these are basically hardware devices and these are interconnected with the help of network. And these networking devices that I've told now, and those which are used commercially or those which are used in multiple organizations, are classified based on the OSI reference model. Okay. And as we know, the OSI reference model is basically having 7 layers. We have the application, APST, NDP, application, presentation, session, transport, network, data link, and physical. Okay. So before understanding the devices that deal with these layers, the first step is to understand that how the data is actually being transmitted in these layers. Okay, so as we all know, whenever suppose take the example of any application, like we have the Google Chrome application, we have the Outlook application, the Gmail application, we have multiple applications. Okay, and whenever we deal with applications, we generate the data. We have the presentation layer and we have the session layer. So all these three layers combinedly, sorry, they create the data for us. Okay, we will not go into the details about how the data is being created and the role of each layer, but we'll just cover the basics that is needed to understand the network devices. Okay, so after this data is being created, okay, so we know that think of data as a long series of a huge train, we can tell a huge data we have. So it is not possible to transport everything together. So the data is broken into small segments. Okay, it is broken into small segments by the transport layer. And when it breaks a thing, suppose you have a long piece of what to take the example of a big train, okay, and you're breaking it up into small pieces. So you have to number the segments as well. Okay, so we have the sequence number and we have the segments that are created in the transport layer. And after the transport layer comes the network layer. Now, what this network layer will do is that to this created segment, it will add its source IP from where it has originated and from where to where it has to go, the destination IP. So when the segment is prefixed with the source and destination IP addresses, a packet is formed. Okay, so the network layer deals with packets. Okay, now comes the data link layer after the network layer. What this data link layer does is that it takes this packet which has the source IP, the destination IP, and the individual data segment, and it prefixes the source and the destination MAC addresses. Okay, and this combination of the source MAC, the destination MAC, followed with the packet, and again we also have some frame checks, sequence bits, and all those kind of things. All this together form a single frame, and the physical layer is actually responsible for simply transmitting this frame. Okay, so this is a very brief idea about how this OSI reference layer model works. And now we will just have a small example of that, and then we'll go into the actual devices and we will see the role of those devices in transporting the data on in our internet domain. Okay, so for example, we saw this physical layer, which I told you that it transmits the frame. So how is the frame created basically? So as I said, first we have the data segment that is created in this transport layer. Okay, the data is basically broken into smaller segments or smaller chunks, we can say. Okay, and when the data is broken, each segment will have that. Okay, this is my segment number. This is my sequence number. Also, it will have the source and destination port number. Now, port number is not something very important in our discussion, but still, just to give you a brief idea about it, yeah, like there are multiple applications, and when like you have the Windows Defender application, also like the Chrome application, the Outlook application, different types of applications are there on any system. Okay, and when the data like a single system can transmit or can inject multiple types of data from multiple applications, we can tell. Okay, simultaneously. Okay, Outlook can be sending a mail simultaneously while I'll be browsing on my Chrome browser, and in the background the Defender would be updating something, some services will be running. So when all these different things are there, the different applications inject the data simultaneously. So to prevent this confusion, there is something called as port number. Okay, so for every FTP service we have a specific port number. For every HTTP service we have a port number. So for different type of applications we have this port number. Okay, so the important thing is that in the transport layer we have the segments, and this segment when it comes to the next layer, that is the network layer, okay, when it comes to the network layer, a packet is formed. How? By prefixing it with the source and destination IP. And after the network layer comes the data link layer, which basically takes this packet and it prefixes it with the source and destination MAC addresses. And finally, this frame is transmitted by the physical layer. And this frame, when we see it, it is basically a sequence of binary zeros and ones. And the physical layer converts these binary sequences into signals, and then it transmits it over the local media. It can be the electrical signal in case of the copper or LAN cable. It can be the light signal in case of optical fiber. It can be the radio signal in case of anything. Okay. So this is basically the working of the OSI reference model. Now comes the devices that operate on these layers. So the first thing, we will start from the bottom. Okay. Physical layer. Okay. Which transmits the medium. So the physical layer basically has a hub and a repeater. These are the two main devices that we use in the physical layer. So what is a hub? Now, if we even Google it, what is a hub, we can see this is basically a device, and there are multiple endpoint devices, the laptops, the computers, the servers that are connected to this hub. So basically, this entire thing looks like a star topology, or we can say it looks like something. Why the name is given like hub? It is not circular, but if you just draw an imaginary circular line, we can see it resembles just the wheel of a bicycle, we can say, right? So that is why the name has been given as hub, because in a bicycle we have the central device, which is the hub, and then we have the spikes. So we can think of that as these are the spikes, these connecting lines are the spikes, okay, these connecting wires are the spikes. So hence the name has come as a hub, okay, hub topology or hub device. So the central device is the hub, and it resembles us, it looks like a star, but it works on the bus principle. Okay, now to understand this better, we have to see how this system works. So basically, you have multiple end devices, say computers, to keep it simple. Okay, so whenever a computer, say computer 1 wants to communicate with computer 10, we have to say, let's PC4, PC1 wants to assume with PC4, then how will it communicate? It will not directly communicate with PC4, it will broadcast a message on the entire network. Okay, so to see in this example, okay, which I just got from Google randomly, if this PC wants to communicate with this particular PC, say PC1 wants to communicate with PC4, there is no direct way for PC1 to interact with PC4. It has to broadcast the information, and the information will go to all the end devices. It will go to all the PCs, but it will say that this information is only for PC4. So then PC4 will accept the information, and then PC4 will read the information, but others can ignore the information. That is how a hub works, and this is not a very secure way. It's like going in a class filled with students and shouting the name that, hey Rahul, I want to talk with you, or hey Sam, I want to talk with you, right? So it's not a very secure way of communication, but this is how a hub basically works. So it is not an intelligent device. It has no brain of its own. It will just go and shout the information that is passed on to it to everyone. And then it is the responsibility of the end device that we want to communicate with to accept the information, and others will be rejecting that information. So here, as I said, even if PC1 wants to communicate only with PC4, hub will send the message to everyone it is connected with. Information which PC1 would have sent would have had the sender and receiver address also. So PC4 would only accept the address, but others will reject it, because PC4 will say that, okay, this message is for me, I am Rahul. You are going and shouting in a class, who is Rahul? Rahul will respond, okay, this is me, tell me what you want to say, and then in front of everyone the message will be said. So it's something like that, okay? So everyone will be listening to it, but they will ignore it. Only Rahul will say, okay, fine, I got the information, now I can go. So hub will broadcast to all, but others reject, but the intended receiver will accept it. And this, as I said, does not provide any security, okay? And it can transmit the electrical as well as the binary signal. Another thing to note here is that hub uses the half duplex communication. So what is this half duplex communication? It basically means that at a given point of time, A can send the message to B, or B can send the message to A. They both cannot talk to each other simultaneously. Like suppose I am talking with person A, I am talking with person B. Once I finish saying one message, then only I can get the message which person B is trying to tell me. Simultaneously, it cannot be like at the same point of time, both of us, it cannot be bidirectional. It has to be unidirectional, either from A to B or from B to A. That is half duplex. We can also Google that the difference between simplex, half duplex, and full duplex, and we can get a very clear diagram. So as you can see, simplex means A can only tell to B. It can never get the message which B wants to tell. It has no method of receiving the message. It's like we have our FM radio in our house, right? So we can simply receive the signals. There is no way for us to send back the signal. Okay, so that is simplex mode of communication. Half duplex means both of them can send and receive, but at a time, at one point of time, at a given instance of time, either it can send or it can receive. That is half duplex. And full duplex is that at the same point of time, at the same instant of time, both directional communication can be possible. Like in the case of our mobile communication, I am talking with, to a friend of mine, and at the same time we can sing together. Okay, I can hear his voice also, and at the same time he will be hearing my voice as well. So that is full duplex. Okay, so hub works on, as we can say, a half duplex way of communication. Okay, so this is basic working of a hub. And to understand this thing better, okay, we can basically the example which I told right now, that suppose I want to communicate with a given PC. So what do? I broadcast my message. Think of it in a school term, like the way I go in a class and I shout that, hey, who is Rahul? Okay, so Rahul will come. And now think of the same example in a bit different way. Okay, suppose there is a huge room, as we can see in this particular example that I've given over there. We have a huge room, okay, and there are many people in that room, okay, many hungry people, we can say, to make the things more lucrative. And I tell that, okay, outside I have food, okay, and I have only one door, okay, I have kept only one door. So what will happen? Everyone will rush through that one door, and that one door is basically now acting as the collision domain, what we call in terms of networking. Okay, so basically when think of, like as I said, the problem with hub is that it works in a half duplex mode of communication. So at a time only one PC can send the message, others cannot. Okay, so what will happen if everyone tries to send the message at the same time? Okay, so that is the analogous to this example which I'm trying to explain over here. If you have a room filled with hungry people, 20 hungry people say, and I have given only one door to exit. So what will happen? At a time only one person can go and the others will not be able to pass through the door. So that is the meaning of this single collision domain. So hub acts as a single collision domain. That is, we can say this room has only one door, single door, so single collision domain. And this is not a very efficient way, because at a time only one person is able to go out and the others are not able to. So they will fall there and it will create a lot of chaos. So if now this room had multiple doors, okay, think the same room now has two doors, say one at this end and another at this end. So it will be a two collision domain. If there are multiple doors, say 10 doors, 12 doors, 24 doors, then it will be a multi-collision domain. And more the collision domains, that is more the rooms, like more the doors we are opening in a window, we are basically increasing the efficiency. We are basically making the things more systematic. Because suppose there are 20 people and we have 20 doors. So now it is not a problem. Everyone can go through their own door, right? So this brings us to the next type of device, as we saw over here. There are basically bridges and switch. Okay, so after hub comes the concept of bridge and switch. But yes, in hub there is also something called as repeater. So what is a repeater? So before going to bridge and switch, let's see what is a repeater basically. So repeater, as we can say, is nothing more but an active hub. So what I said, what is a hub? Okay, so hub will basically just go and shout out the message. Now in some cases what happens is that after traveling some distance, the message basically the amplitude decreases. Okay, the signal travels in a waveform, right? So the amplitude decreases. So once the amplitude decreases, then we need to amplify the signal. So with the, how do we do that? We need to give external electricity. So if we give electricity, we can amplify the signal. We can regenerate the digital signal. We amplify the analog signal or regenerate the digital signal, and that is what is basically an active hub, and that is what we call a repeater. A repeater is basically an active hub that can amplify the signal, and passive hub or the normal hub which doesn't use any external electricity, just message comes and just goes through that. Okay, so we need to remember these few things. And also, as I said, hub does not have a brain of its own, so it cannot store any MAC address, it cannot store any IP address. There are no tables inside it. Okay, it's just a brainless person. Whatever it comes to it, it just broadcasts it. It doesn't put any brain of its own. Okay, so this is the meaning of a hub. Now comes the next device, the next type of device that works in a data link layer, because APST, NDP, we saw presentation, sorry, physical layer we saw, right? We have these hubs and repeater. Repeater is nothing more just an active hub, we can tell, that can just regenerate or amplify the signal, okay? And that can help us basically shout. It's just like shouting for a longer distance. We can be able to shout for a longer, larger distance, okay? And then comes the data link layer, where we have the bridge and switch. So what is a bridge? So bridge is basically, it is used to reduce the amount of traffic on a LAN by, as I said, it basically divides the entire data. Is now we have this frames, right? So we see this here, it's a data link layer. So if we see this image over here, okay, so now we have these frames over here, and now we have the source and destination MAC addresses. Okay, so this is the advantage of having a in this data link layer, that now we have these addresses with us. Okay, this layer can recognize these addresses. Okay, this is the source MAC address, this is the destination MAC address, and this is the packet that I need to basically transmit to the next layer. So now our devices should be able to recognize these addresses, these MAC addresses and the packet. So for that we use basically, as we can see over here, a bridge and a switch. So how does this work? Let's have a brief intro on that. So basically, bridge has a bridge table which has the port number and MAC address. Okay, the bridge reads the information on the basis of the MAC addresses. Okay, now to understand this, see, bridge will basically have two doors, two collision domain. Okay, in the case of hub, we saw in this example there was only one door, so single collision domain. Here it's there are two doors. So one port will be on this side and one port will be on this side, say, right side and the left side. Okay, so now suppose, okay, suppose on the let's say this is the right side and this is the left side. Okay, so on the right side we have four computers, E, F, G, H, and on the left side we have four computers, A, B, C, D. Okay, now the thing to note here is that all these four computers on one particular side will fall in a single collision domain. That is, they are connected through only one particular port of the bridge. So these four will fall under the first collision domain, and these EFGH, these remaining four computers will fall under the second collision domain. Okay, I hope this is clear till now. It's very simple. Two collision domains, all computers on right side on one collision domain, all computers on the left side on the second collision domain. Okay, and how are these multiple computers connected in a single port? We can use a hub for that. So all these computers can be connected to a hub, and this hub can be connected to this left side, and another hub can be there on the right side, and the computers can be connected to that. Even we can see that over here. If I just see, yeah, this is a bridge, right? So in this random image from Google that I just got, we can see that a bridge is basically connected to two hubs, one on each side, and the devices have been connected to the hub. So this is how a bridge basically looks like. And how does this work? Now suppose first time the PCA wants to talk with PCH, the first computer wants to talk with the last computer. Now this PCA is on the first collision domain and PCH is on the last collision, the second collision domain. So in this bridge, it will have its own, it has its own bridge table. Okay, so in this bridge table, there will be two ports, as I told, port 1 and port 2. So it will see that, okay, this PCA is there on the port 1, I will store its MAC address. And now I also have the MAC address of PCH. So that is in the port 2. So in port 2, I will store the MAC address of PCH. Okay, so the bridge table it looks something like this. Port 1 has the MAC address of PCA and port 2 has the MAC address of PCH. Okay, now second time this computer B wants to talk with computer H. So what will it do? That do I have these addresses with me? I have the address of PCH with me. So no issues. In this portion, the port number 2 will stay as it is. But this PCB, okay, the second PCB is new for me. So it will update its bridge table, and now port 1 will have two MAC addresses corresponding to it. Okay, see the number of what we say, the number of rows. Okay, the number of rows remain constant in this bridge table. If the bridge has two ports, there will be only two rows. Okay, and for each row which corresponds to a collision domain, with each ongoing, see, when there will be no communication, there will be no way for this bridge to learn the MAC addresses. Only when a communication happens will it learn the MAC address. Okay, so now when the PC 2 or the PCB wants to communicate with PCH, it will store the MAC address of the PCB corresponding to the first row, the port 1, the collision domain 1. Okay. Now, suppose PCB wants to talk with PC number E. So again, now to see that, okay, I have the MAC address of B, so I need not update the bridge table for the first row, but for the second row, I it's a new entry for me, right? This PC is on the, it's a new learning for me, so it will like update that, okay, this PC is a new learning for me, so I put it corresponding to the port number 2 because it is on the right side. Okay, so corresponding to this collision domain, it will update the bridge table. Now, suppose PCB wants to talk with PCC. Now, you see that, okay, both of them are in the same collision domain. So it's just a new PC is there, but it is on the same communication domain, same collision domain, sorry. So it will update the port 1 only. Now the port 1 will have the MAC addresses of PC A, B, and C, and port 2 will just retain the MAC addresses of PC H and D. Now suppose PC A wants to talk with PC C, so will it update the bridge table? No, it won't be updated because already it has the MAC addresses of PC A and PC C corresponding to the collision domain 1. So this is how a bridge table works, and this is how a bridge basically works. Okay. So bridge has a bridge table which has the port number and MAC addresses. This is the port number, this is the MAC address. Bridge reads the information on the basis of MAC address. First time communication between PC A to PC H, the bridge will send the message to all the computers, from starting from B till H. Only H will acknowledge and receive it. And when H will receive and acknowledge it, then the bridge will understand that, okay, this is the acknowledgement from H, so I will maintain its MAC address. So this is how the bridge will know whose MAC address to maintain. Okay, because the first time it will be broadcasting, and only the end device that will accept it will maintain its MAC address, and it will know that, okay, this is the PCH that has been referred to, this is the MAC address of the PC. Okay, so basically bridge is also broadcasting, but it is broadcasting to only one portion. So now we are having two collision domains. So suppose I have to broadcast the information. So here I won't be broadcasting to all the 8 devices. I will be broadcasting to either these 4 or these 4, the right 4 or the left 4. So broadcast will be there in one collision domain only. Okay. So this is the advantage, a little bit advantage of having a bridge than a hub. In case of hub, we had only one collision domain, so everyone got to know the thing. But here we have 2 collision domains, so the number of like computers that will be receiving the message are reduced to half in this case. Okay, it does not have if the bridge does not have the MAC address for a PC or device, it will broadcast it to everyone. Okay, meaning to say that suppose I am transmitting, I want PC A wants to communicate with PC H. Okay, but it does not have the MAC address of PCH in it. So in that case, it will be broadcasted in both the collision domains. It will be broadcasted in this first collision domain as well as in the second collision domain. But the second time, when the PC A will want to communicate with PCH, that time it will not be broadcasted in this first collision domain because it knows that this PCH is on the second collision domain. So the message will be broadcasted on the second collision domain, not on the first one. That is the trick over here. That is the thing to remember over here. Okay. So if a bridge does not have the MAC address for a PC or device, it will broadcast it to everyone. Once the receiver receives the message, bridge will update the MAC address in its table. So bridge will broadcast first and then it will unicast later. Okay, so unicast in either the port 1 or the port 2, or if like that is called unicasting, when it broadcasts in one collision domain, in only one collision domain of the 2 collision domains, it is called unicast. And if it is broadcasting in both the collision domains, it is called the normal broadcast. Okay, so this is basically explained over here again. Sorry for this. Yeah. So if A wants to talk with D the second time, as I told, just for an example, it will broadcast only on the left side. Okay, so this is the right. Okay, so this is, that's not D, that's E. Sorry for the typing mistake over here. So if A wants to communicate with device E, it will broadcast only on this particular right side. Okay, and if it wants to communicate with D, okay, it will broadcast only on the left side. And this broadcasting on a single side is called as unicasting. Okay, that's the thing to remember over here. Okay, so we broadcast on one side, it's called unicast, and it happens the second time onwards. First time it will broadcast in both the domains, but the second time it is broadcasting in only one side, so it is a bit better. Okay, and another thing to note here is that bridge inspects the incoming traffic and then it decides whether to forward or reject. It also has this capability. It can check and decide based on the source and destination MAC addresses. Okay, and these MAC addresses always work on the data link layer, which comes just above the physical layer. IP addresses do not work on the data link layer. They work on the layer above the data link layer. Okay, as we can even see in this initial OSI model, that above the data link layer, we have the network layer, which forms the packet. And it is in this network layer that we have the IPs, the source and the destination IPs we can see. In the network layer, we have this packet, the source and destination IP, but the data link layer, we do not have any IP. It will just read the source and destination MAC addresses. It cannot go inside the packet. Inside the packet, that thing is done by the network layer. Okay, so now let's go back to where we were. So this is basically the working of a bridge. Now comes the concept of a switch, because we saw that in this particular bridge, we have only two collision domains. We have only two ways. So it is unicasting. At a given point of time, on one particular side, all the PCs are able to get the message, which although is better than the hub, but it is still not a very ideal situation. Okay, basically we can tell that we have a room with say 24 people and we have only two doors. So still there will be confusion, still there will be collision. So then came the concept of a switch, which is basically a multi-port bridge. Okay, so as what happens in a switch is that there are multiple collision windows, we can say. So in this switch, there can be 24 doors, we can say 24 collision domains. There can be 48 collision domains, there can be 4, 8, 12, 16. There can be multiple ports, and each port will be connected to a single device. Okay, so now it's basically like to say that if the room has 24 people, and for each person there is only one door, so there will not be any confusion. The moment the food arrives, every person can take a unique door and exit the room. So that is the advantage of using a switch, and that is the reason why nowadays we use a switch only whenever we have to like communicate between multiple computers on the same network. This is the reason why we use a switch. Okay, and as we know that switch basically, like being a layer 2 device, it works on the basis of MAC addresses. So we will see that in more detail. And the thing to note here is that whatever be the number of ports in a switch, each port is connected to every other port. Everyone is interconnected through one unique route, and there would be no chance of any collision because everyone knows that this is the route through which I have to go. Suppose PC A wants to communicate with PC H, there is no need to broadcast because it knows that okay, there is only one way to go to PC H. Earlier, it did not know where to go, so that is why it was like going to everyone at all points of time. But now each port is connected to every other port, so here there is no confusion, there is no collision. Okay, so for every communication there is only one way. So if we have a 48 port switch, it is equivalent to saying that we have 48 collision domains, meaning everyone has a clear way to go out. So there is almost zero chance of packet collision. And how does a switch work? So basically, switch has a table called the content accessible manageable table, which is the CAM table. Okay, hub did not have any table. Bridge had its table, which basically had two rows. Okay, and for each row, it just because it has two ports, it has only two rows in that table, and for each row it will have the port number 1 and port number 2, two rows. Port 1 will have multiple columns with the MAC addresses of the actual devices, okay, that are connected. Over here, in case of switch, we will have multiple rows. Suppose it's a 48 port switch, so we will have 48 rows, and for each row, okay, there will be only one column for MAC address. There won't be multiple values of MAC addresses because each port will be connected to only one device. There is only one single collision domain. So that is the reason why there is no packet collision over here. Okay, so that is also the reason why switch is called intelligent, because it has a larger memory and it works with as we can say, there is no collision. That's why it's called intelligent. It can store the MAC addresses for each and every particular end device, and it can map that to a single port number only, so that for the next communication it will directly go to that particular port number only. Okay, so it has memory. It works with the application specific integrated circuit, ASICs. So the first time, okay, because first time it doesn't know anything. Okay, the first time it will broadcast, that is common. But after knowing the MAC addresses, okay, so After that, it will unicast. That is, communication will be done only between the two PCs. Here also I'm using the term unicast, but in this case, because the collision domain is like one, okay, so that is only in each port there is only one PC that is connected. So it will be a direct end-to-end communication. You can say it won't be a broadcast. Okay. So and this CAN table is also updated. Okay. And also, yeah, if you if you add a PC, remove a PC, or you reconnect a PC, you update the MAC address of a PC, then also this MAC address is updated only when a communication is done. Suppose I just connect a PC, but I do not communicate, I do not send any information from it, or I do not send any information to that PC, then this table will not be updated. It will be updated only when a communication is done to that PC. Okay, and only then can the switch know that okay, this is the MAC address. Nobody goes and says that okay, this is my MAC address. No, that is not how a device recognizes the MAC address. A MAC address is recognized only when the particular device sends the information saying that okay, this is my MAC address and I want to send this particular information to that particular MAC address. Then only will the switch recognize, or it will learn the MAC address, and it will be able to map the MAC address to the corresponding port in it. Okay. So switch can also multicast. Yes, this is an advantage. If there is a need for PC A to simultaneously communicate with multiple PCs, then also it is possible in case of a switch. That is, it can basically send a message to a group of PCs, just like a, say, for example, a WhatsApp group chat. Okay, I can forward a message to multiple people also simultaneously, and if I want, I can forward to just one person simultaneously. I do not need to broadcast a message on my status, right? So that is the advantage of using a switch. So every port of a switch is a separate collision domain, and it works on a full duplex mode. That is, because it's a dedicated path, we can say, so full duplex communication can take place in a switch. Okay, and the types of switch that are there. So basically there are 4 types of switch. One is store and forward. That is, whatever information will come, there is a buffer space. It will store the data first to verify the frame, and then it will forward it. Now this is a bit slow, but it is very reliable and it is very safe. Okay. Second is cut through. It will just the information comes and it will just read the bare minimum where you want to go. Okay, just go. It won't check anything else. There will not be any error checking, or there will not be any other type of checking done in case of a cut through type of switch. It is very fast. Third comes the fragment free, which basically is like somewhere between the middle of 1 and 2. Over here, it will check the first 64 bits. So basically, I will just check for some errors, some commonly occurring errors, and it will just forward the data packet. Okay, so that is the fragment free switch. And the fourth is adaptive type of switch, which basically can alternate between the first 2 types of switches. And switches can also be manageable. That is, we can configure a switch and also non-manageable. Earlier we did not have a configurable switch, but nowadays we can also configure a switch based on our requirement. Okay. Then comes router. So we saw till now the hub, switch, and bridge, which are basically networking devices. A router is not a networking device; it is an inter-networking device. That is, it is used to communicate between 2 different networks. Okay. Switch. Suppose I take the example of a switch. Hub then grew into a bridge, then bridge grew into a switch. That is what we can tell for some easy understanding. So all these things, thing to remember is that the network was same, and within the same network only we are communicating. If I connect 2 PCs and I assign them to different network IDs, okay, I have a switch, or I have a bridge, and I have 2 computers connected to it with different networks, then they cannot communicate. The first condition is that all of the devices that are connected in a switch, whichever side it is or whichever port it is, or even in a bridge, we have 2 ports. So on both the sides, all the devices should be having the same network ID. In all these cases, the network ID was 1. They belong to a single network. Okay. But a router is used to communicate between 2 different networks. So it is an inter-networking devices. Okay. So when we communicate, for example, within a room, or office, or a building, then we use a networking device, okay, which is basically a switch, bridge, or a hub, as we saw, as they run on one single network. Okay, so they have only one network ID. In their IP address, the network ID will be constant, but it will not be able to operate if there are 2 different network IDs. So, and that is yes, definitely, because the condition for having a LAN is that a network ID should be unique. Okay, so suppose take this example. In this case, as we see, this is a class A IP address. So over here, the network ID is 10.0.0.0. This is same for both these 2 IP addresses. So it means they can communicate through a LAN. So we can use a switch. So But router is the device that is used to communicate between two different networks. Suppose instead of 10, you would have had 11, then it means there are two different networks. Okay, so in that case, we have to use a router. Okay, so router is basically connected to a switch in general practice, and the switch is then connected to the different PCs. This is the general standard. So this is the example. As you can see, this is a router which is connected to two different switches on its two sides, and then each switch is connected to multiple PCs or multiple end devices. And as we can see, all the devices have the same network ID on the switch. All the devices on this particular switch have the network ID 10.0.0.0, and over here it has 192.168.1.0. That is the network ID of this other devices in this particular switch. So router should have two different networks on its two different interfaces. Okay, we cannot give the same network address on both the sides. In that case, the router won't work. Okay, so router maintains the routing table, because over here we have to deal with the IP addresses, we have to deal with the network IDs. So it is, how is it stored? It is stored in the routing table. Okay, so routers are mostly used in WAN, where there are multiple network IDs. It can also be used in WAN. It is not that it cannot be used, but it's not very useful. It will be very costly, because getting the unique IP addresses is different IP addresses is not a very easy thing to do. Okay, so it's not very cost effective. Routers and switches have multiple ports, but switches generally have many ports, around 24 or 48, but routers have around 4 or 8 ports max. In routers, every port has its one broadcast domain. Okay, and router uses IP addresses. Okay, that is, it delivers network IDs from the IP addresses and sends in the form of packets. Router does not check the MAC address. Okay, router only has the IP address information, does not have the MAC address information. Okay, this is basically the same thing as we saw over here. If you recollect, yeah. So basically, router, okay, deals with the deals with the packets. Okay, and in the packet we have these IP addresses. It cannot see. Like suppose the data is coming from upward, so till now the MAC address is not there. So how will it deal with MAC addresses? And if the MAC address, if the data is coming from downward, that is, it is the frame comes. The frame checks the MAC addresses. It then extracts the packet and then it sends it over to the network layer. So the network layer always deals with the IP addresses only. It doesn't deal with the MAC addresses. So router is basically a layer 3 device that deals with the IP addresses, and switch is a layer 2 device that deals with the MAC address. I hope this brief video on understanding the different type of networking devices, the layers on which they work, was a bit informative. So thank you for your time for listening to this. Thank you very much.